Okay, I mean, I'm just trying to understand, no, because it says that you should not have loyalty to any other country. So with his with his recognition, it basically says that it's an affirmation. So meaning parang false na rin po yung application niya on the US passport.
Alam mo po, only when I'm traveling. But all my life po, I have lived in the Philippines. I was born in America, but I spent my entire life in the Philippines. I only went to college in America, and I only went there when there was martial law.
ETVOnlineChannel, in the service of the Filipino online world.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Chairman Chicoy Alvarez and Chairman Jonathan C. Alvarado, to my colleagues in Congress and our guest, and to those who are watching today via Zoom. Let me start off by saying that a franchise is a privilege given by the state. It is not a right. Therefore, no one is entitled to it. So we are having these hearings so we could have a better judgment on whether or not someone shall be given this privilege. So, Mr. Chair, may I be allowed to ask my questions directly to our guest, Mr. Gabby Lopez?
Yes, po, Bautista, please proceed na po para tuloy-tuloy.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Gabby Lopez. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for gracing us with your presence this afternoon in this hearing. So, I just have a few questions, sir, with regards to your citizenship and how far you've exercised your right as an American citizen, because you're both an American and a Filipino citizen as well. Sir, Mr. Lopez, do you have any business or do you own or control any business or property in the U.S.?
Mr. Lopez is recognized. Go ahead, Mr. Lopez.
Chairman Alvarez, Chairman Alvarado, members of the Committee for Legislative Franchise, members of the Committee for Good Governance and Public Accountability, members of the Committee on Legislative Franchise and Public Accountability, esteemed members of Congress, viewers, research guests, and Governor Bautista. Magandang hapon po. Could you kindly repeat your question?
Yes, yes. So my question was, do you own or control any business or property in the U.S.?
We have TFC, the Filipino channel, which is stationed in San Francisco.
So, as a U.S. citizen, are you required to pay taxes like income tax to the U.S. Internal Revenue Service, like the counterpart of our BIR?
Opo. The way the tax law works is I pay all the taxes that are due in the Philippines. And then if there are any incremental taxes that have to be paid in America, yung binabayaran sa Amerika lang, incremental to the taxes in the Philippines. Because for the most part of the year, I am stationed in the Philippines.
Okay, so would it be correct to say that the U.S. government is also getting income from your taxes that you earn here in the Philippines?
Opo, they get income tax, but only after all the taxes in the Philippines is paid.
So those are...
Hindi na kulang yung binabayaran sa Pilipinas po.
Okay, so those are essentially like the tax credits, right?
Hindi po, talagang nagbabayad ka ng tax. Kasi po, yung tax sa Amerika mas mataas sa Pilipinas.
Yes. Yes. So, moving forward, so last week, when I asked about declaring or pledging allegiance to the United States, you said that as an American citizen, you have never made any declaration of allegiance to the U.S. Do you remember this, Mr. Lopez? I asked you last week.
Opo.
Yes. But you renewed your passport last 2015. In fact,
Congressman-
the copy of your
Congresswoman
passport
Bautista.
states that you renewed it 2015 and it expires 2025.
Congresswoman Bautista, from the chair,
Yes.
I'm presiding for the two committees. If we can just please repeat the question because the replies are not clear. coming into the, I'm not sure if the people watching can hear what the reply to your question. So if you can just slow down the question previous to what you're asking now.
Oh, okay. Okay, Mr. Chair. So my question was for Mr. Gabby Lopez was, when I ask you about declaring or pledging allegiance to the United States, you said that as an American citizen, you have never made any declaration of allegiance to the U.S.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay. But you renewed your passport last 2015, correct?
That is right.
Okay. So on the page 1 of the application for your current U.S. passport, 2015 to 2025, that was submitted to us, on the very part that you signed on March 17, 2015, you declared under penalty of perjury that you are a citizen of the United States, and I quote, have not since acquiring U.S. citizenship or nationality performed any of the acts listed under the acts or conditions on page 4 of the instruction sheet attached to the application. So may I read, Mr. Chair, may I read on what the instruction sheet states on the acts or conditions? You declared, I quote, I have not since acquiring U.S. citizenship or nationality been naturalized as a citizen of a foreign state, taken an oath or made an affirmation or other formal declaration of allegiance to a foreign state, so on and so forth. So my question is, Mr. Lopez, isn't this application for your current U.S. passport, which you signed under oath, in effect a declaration of allegiance to the U.S. government?
Your Honor, I would like to direct the response to this particular question to our corporate lawyer, Ayo Bautista po.
Attorney Bautista, you're recognized. Oh.
Yan. Naririnig na po ninyo ako? Hello?
Please proceed po, Attorney Bautista. Narinig ko kayo.
Naririnig po kayo? Salamat po. Magandang hapon po sa lahat. Yung binasa po ni Congressman Bautista, uulitin ko lang po para maliwanag. I have not, since acquiring United States citizenship or nationality, been naturalized as a citizen of a foreign state. Hindi po naging natural citizen si Mr. Lopez kung anumang estado kasi po natural born Filipino siya. Taken an oath or made an affirmation or other formal declaration of allegiance to a foreign state.
Sasabihin ko dyan.
Sinabi po Congresswoman Lindin ni Mr. Lopez na hindi siya nagtitake ng oath or made an affirmation or other formal declaration of allegiance to the Philippines. Marami pong Supreme Court decisions na nagdideklara that the act of renunciation must be categorical. At wala po siyang oath na binibigay dito sa Pilipinas. At yung pong effect nitong binasa ninyo ay simple lang na if the act or circumstance applies to you, you are simply required to include a supplementary or an explanatory note. Kaya po nung sinabi ko nung last hearing, hindi naman tayo po abogado ng Amerika, kaya hindi ko po alam kung anong ibig sabihin ng oath or affirmation sa kanilang jurisprudence. Pero po sa ating jurisprudence, marami pong kaso na nagsasabi na hindi po ito equivalent to the act or affirmation which disqualifies you as a Filipino citizen. Hindi po yun express renunciation. Salamat po.
Claudine, please proceed po sa inyo.
Can I be unmute? Okay. Sorry, I was just waiting for me to be unmuted, Mr. Chair. So technically, how about the affirmation, Attorney Bautista? So the affirmation in the petition for recognition citizenship, isn't that as well, because it's stated there that has made or made an affirmation. How would you clarify that?
Pakisagot po, attorney.
Yes, Congressman. Hindi po yung sufficiente as an express renunciation under several Supreme Court decisions. Kung gusto po ninyo, I can submit po a memorandum on what constitutes express renunciation under Philippine jurisprudence para po maliwanag.
Mr. Chairman. Moment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
inquiry only.
Congressman Remulla.
What is the status of Attorney Bautista to this committee? Is he just the lawyer of Mr. Gabby Lopez, or is he a resource person of the committee?
The status of Attorney Bautista in this committee is he's the lawyer of Mr. Gabby Lopez, but the franchise committee, the rules on franchise committee allows the counsel, the legal counsel to be a resource person in the committee. Vice Chairman Remulla.
Thank you.
Please continue, Congresswoman Bautista. You still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney Bautista, I'm not pertaining to the renunciation. Ang tinatanong ko po is, Attorney Bautista, di ba may sinabi siya doon na, di ba niya sinabi doon na wala siyang loyalty sa ibang bansa maliban sa Amerika? Isn't that an affirmation?
Hindi po. Under our laws, ang kailangan po ay express renunciation. Maliwanag po yun. Kahit na ano po yung sabihin ng ibang bayan na affirmation or oath, meron po tayong mga standards na kailangan nandoon para maging express renunciation. At ito po ay hindi one of those.
Okay. Attorney Bautista, so if that's what you're saying, on the other hand, it was his sworn declaration to the U.S. government that was actually false when he signed that when he signed his passport.
Hindi po false yun.
Okay, I mean, I'm just trying to understand, no, because it says that you should not have loyalty to any other country. So with his recognition, it basically says that it's an affirmation. So meaning parang false na rin po yung application niya on the US passport.
Walang galang lang po. I do not agree that it is false. Para po mas simple, magsasubmit po kami ng legal memorandum explaining the consequences of these statements para po mas simple. Kasi po, legal opinion na po yan eh. Hindi ko naman sinasabi tama ako, ma'am. Pero
okay, may I proceed, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Congresswoman Bautista.
So, Mr. Chair, Sir Gabby Lopez, sir, when was the last time that you used your U.S. passport?
When I travel to America, I always use my U.S. passport and my Philippine passport.
And when was the last time that you used your Philippine passport?
The same time I traveled using my U.S. passport. I bring both passports.
Okay, so we have a copy of your travel records from the Bureau of Immigration, and you know we've seen that you switch between you using your U.S. passport and your Philippine passport. So would it be correct to say, in my own understanding, that you would use your U.S. passport and enter as a U.S. citizen in countries that's easier for you to be, that's more convenient and beneficial to you to be when it's beneficial for you to be an American rather than to be a Filipino?
Actually, when you travel through Europe, if you use a US passport, you don't need a visa.
Yes.
If you use a Philippine passport, you need a visa. On the other hand, when I travel through the ASEAN countries, if you use a Philippine passport, you don't need a visa. And if you use a US passport, you need a visa. However, in traveling to the Philippines immigration always requires you to bring both passports.
So yes, let me just wrap things up. I'm about to finish. So you would use your American citizenship when it is more convenient and beneficial for you in countries when it is easier for you to be an American rather than to be a Filipino, correct?
Alam mo po, only when I'm traveling. But all my life po, I have lived in the Philippines. I was born in America, but I spent my entire life in the Philippines. I only went to college in America, and I only went there when there was martial law and I escaped with my father. But other than that, I have lived my whole life in the Philippines. I have paid all the taxes in the Philippines. In thought, in word, in deed, I am po a Filipino citizen.
Yes. So my last question lang, Mr. Lopez, is, so you arrived on 1986. How come it took you 18 years to file your recognition as a Filipino?
Let me refer that question to our corporate lawyer, Attorney Bautista.
Sorry po, hindi po ako ang abogado ni Mr. Lopez dun sa kanyang certificate of request for recognition. But I recall he already answered that. Na it was one of the reasons was for him to get a passport. Ang masasabi ko po lang is under the Bureau of Immigration rule, the when you apply for and get a certificate of recognition, it may be used for any legal purpose. Kaya irrelevant po kung ginamit niya for a passport or whatever legal purpose. At sinabi rin namin na the use of a passport, a foreign passport, or getting a foreign passport does not result into the loss of your Filipino citizenship. Salamat po.
Mr. Chair, I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Lopez, and thank you, Attorney Bautista.
Like and subscribe. Watch the previous video. Thank you for watching.